We'll pause and then we'll keep going. What we can do for their section. But
Sure.
that's best for, as you would know, broadcasting and that kind of thing. So here we are. We haven't done this in a little while, Doug. Welcome to Talk Story Unscripted. My name's Pete, and next to me is
Doug.
And we have a very special guest with us today. As a matter of fact, he is one of the broadcasters here on Call TV. But before we get to him, Doug, I want to just mention, last night, I get this text from Malala, and there's this music video. And I said, what is this? So I play it. I said, oh my goodness, this is amazing. All these churches, like 200 million churches, it felt like.
200,000,005.
Yeah, 200,000,005 churches, 2020 churches. How's that? And they were all singing this incredible song together, yet apart. I thought, what is this? And
That's beautiful.
Guess what? We've got the guy who was the catalyst in putting this all together. Pastor Dan Chun. Dan, how are you? So glad to see you.
Great to be here. Super privileged to be with you two.
Well, we're really
happy with this.
Yes, and you know, I do have to say one thing, Dan. We're gonna reveal a secret. This is a secret.
Oh my goodness.
I think most people already know this, but I'm gonna act like no one does.
Okay.
Secret. Although Dan is a pastor of First Presbyterian Church here in Oahu, do you know, Doug, that he was also involved heavily in cinema? Amazing. And as a matter of fact,
speaking my language.
And he has a degree from the cinema school in all of America, maybe even all of the world, from USC. Dan, I can't believe this. This is amazing. You know, a lot of great people went to that school. There's Steven Spielberg, there's George Lucas, and even me. Well, I didn't finish school. I actually just did some night courses. That's all I did, Dan. Don't get excited.
You're still an alumnus. If you take one course, you're an alumnus.
I love
it. And the development office will know where you are.
This is true. This is true. Yeah, and it's so exciting.
Right on.
Yeah, and I'm just blown away by that. You know, that you have a background in cinema, and that's exciting because this Talk Story Unscripted is all about that. Pretty much. I mean, we love talking about cinema. We love talking about stories. So it's really good to have you here. It's great.
Well, you know, it's funny. In college, I went. There were not many topics that interested me, and then I found out they had a brand new radio station, and through that, I got interested in media. And then right after I graduated from college, I by God's grace, I became a TV news reporter for KGMB. Did that for 3 years. And so that interest, and then after that went to seminary and then went to film school. And so all of that, and I thought someday I'd end up in Hollywood or somewhere and do, you know, films with George Lucas or something. I had the same teachers as George Lucas, actually. But it's a great class. I mean, can you imagine you have a class and they go, oh, we have a guest lecturer. Oh, who is it? Oh, Steven Spielberg. Oh, okay, bring him in, you know. So it was a great time to be in school at USC.
That's
the University of Southern California. Some people think it's South Carolina. No, Southern California, everybody.
Yes.
Clarify.
And probably one of the scariest places, but it's like a little oasis, right? In the middle of this crazy area, and here's this beautiful campus. I used to love going there. A bit sketchy trying to get into campus, but after that, just incredible time. I loved it.
So, Pastor Dan, it's my understanding that with your schooling of going to film school, that you actually created some award-winning films. Is that correct?
Yeah, back then, my seminary years and film school years, and shortly after, I would do films, and they would be documentaries. They would be on sports figures. They would be on like a man named Eldridge Cleaver, who's the head of the Black Panthers, and he converted to Christianity. And then later I would do films about pastors, let's say from Hawaii, going to the Philippines, and by God's grace, they won awards. And so it was just, it's kind of surprising. So
that's amazing. And speaking of award winning, this video that we saw very recently, I don't know when it came out, but you had how many different churches involved in this video? Was it 25?
Yeah, 25 churches. And it just came out yesterday. I mean, it's only been out there, you know, in about, 12, 16, 17 hours.
Wow.
And we're blown away. There's already 60,000 views.
Wow.
And
well, it's not going to disappoint.
Yeah, and nearly 500 downloads of the audio. And bless her heart, about 90 people gave some money to the food bank, because that was part of the deal.
Oh, that's
Wow, well, it's so well done. It's so beautiful and so well composed and well put together. It's so cool to see all the different people in their elements. And usually in situations like that, it's common for it to kind of be, and then there's a guy over here, but everything just seems so just fluid, like they were all singing in the same room.
Well, it's a really God thing, because if you go to thehawaiiblessing.com, then you can see it. Yeah, when you say I want 25 singers, 25 churches, send me a singer, you just don't know who you're going to get, man. I mean, it could be somebody off key, it could be somebody not great, but they were just wonderful. And then when we get more into the creative things, I had some very specific requirements that I wanted, and I wasn't just talking about music requirements.
Well, that's
interesting.
Great. So how are you holding up, before we get there, how are you holding up in this pandemic right now? What's happening?
Oh, golly. It's probably the most busy in my life because to make the conversion to online streaming of services, and we do 4. And that was a huge learning curve. I believe it closed, the governor closed all the churches down on a Friday. Yeah. And of course, I also do Hawaiian Islands Ministries, which is the huge state conference we had 2,500 people coming, and we had to close that down 5 days before. And that was a humongous loss. Never have canceled a conference in our life, but to cancel that was earth shaking. And then 2 days later, we had to go on the air. I had to have a sermon ready to go. And so the pressure and learning about live streaming was extremely difficult, but I have a great team. And we know when we go back, we're probably going to do both and. We're going to keep at least one online service, plus do the in-person. So that's a little more stress, but the spread has been so much larger. I mean, it's almost 50% higher in viewership by going online, and it just goes all over the country or the world. Some people from England were writing us, and so
that's remarkable.
Amazing. Yeah, so it's a busy time for Joe or Joanne Pastor, and we're just trying to figure it out. But all the churches are working together. We're helping each other out, and there's a sense of the train is moving, but we're building the tracks right in front of the train as we're going, and everybody's trying to help each other out. And there's no perfectionism. We're trying the best we can. And so everybody's affirming. And so it's a stressful time, but a great time. I would say more unity with the churches now than normal times.
That's great. That's really good. Do you see that a lot when you're working on the hymn conference? Would you say that's one of your biggest elements about the conference, that you're bringing churches together to unite?
Yeah, that is a super big reason my wife Pam and I started HIM. Is that we needed to get the churches together. And I think so often we're competitive and not cooperative. But if we really sat down and thought about it, renewal and revival will only occur if we're together. It's not going to happen from one pastor or one church or one denomination. It has to be with allies and friends. Absolutely. And we all have to come together and do that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Speaking of unity, I mean, it's obvious in this video. Do you have plans to make more videos like this with the church unified, 25 different churches? I mean, that's such a unique thing to have, especially locally right here. And, some of the guys, I'm like, hey, I know that guy. And you have plans to make more of those?
It's just, this is brand new, and we never thought 60,000 people viewing it is way more than our 4,000 or 2,000 people in our conferences. So it's really, like with everything, we have been so disrupted, and everybody has to think now how to do ministry different. And you've got to be creative and entrepreneurial and artistic and know how to reach the unchurched. And so, yeah, there is another idea I have for another song, and we'll see how that goes.
Awesome.
Good to hear. You heard it here first, everybody.
And along the lines of the hymn conference, just a little side note for you, Pastor Dan. I don't know if you remember this, but I don't know if it was 4 years ago, I think it was. My wife and I, we were talking with a friend, and they had mentioned a hymn conference was coming up, and they asked if we were going, and we said, oh, no, we just can't afford it right now. And let me make a phone call. And apparently this friend called you, and you you sponsored us to come to the hymn conference. I don't know if you remember that. We came up to you during, and we're like, "Thank you for the ticket."
Yeah, that sounds familiar. That sounds familiar. That was sweet. I was glad we could do that. And basically, I know this goes public, but we have to charge a certain fee because we have so much expenses, and actually the fee doesn't cover the expenses. Every year we have to raise more funds for scholarship and things, but we never want money to be a prohibition. And so if somebody says to me, "Can you let me in free?" or "I can only afford $25, we'll say, "Okay, we'll work it out. Come on in."
Yeah.
So we just try to be realistic. It costs, you wouldn't believe how much it costs, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
And that's why this year was hard. We didn't have the revenue that we thought we'd have.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it was a huge blessing to us, so thank you.
And I have a side story too regarding the hymn conference, and that's I have a good friend. I haven't seen him in years, and of course now I won't be able to see him until we all get to heaven. But Sumo Sato, or Blaine.
Oh my, yes.
He and so Blaine, or Sumo, he ended up in California at a church and went to the Bible school that the church held. And I was one of the teachers there back in the day. And so I met Blaine way back. This is in the 80s. And I remember coming to Hawaii and hanging out with him and seeing all of the East Side, all the Kaneohe boys. And he was that Hawaiian punk guy. He was just a crazy guy, but he loved the Lord so much. And it was really hard. As a matter of fact, the year that I went to the hymn conference was the year that Sumo passed away. He couldn't make it to the conference, and it was really
it was a very sad time for us. But as you saw, we really honored him in that conference. We showed pictures of him, and we talked about him. And precious guy who was very supportive of Hawaiian Islands Ministries, of him, and he understood our theme: get the churches together. The bride of Christ, and we've got to be together. We cannot compete, and we got to help each other.
Exactly, and that's something that I really wanted to ask you. How hard was it to get 25 churches together to do this music video? I know you mentioned it was a bit scary too, but what was that like?
It was relatively easy. It was just calling a lot of pastors and just saying, here's a quick pitch or vision of what I want to do. Could you give me one singer? And we have to record it within a week. And we'll make this like real grassroots. If all they have is an iPhone, fine. We record it with that. Put in your earbuds, fine. If you have a better mic, fine. But the real thing that was so important for me is that it had to be a worship song. Mm-hmm. And I did not want performance. I didn't want a production. And I feel, and this is just my thinking, that a lot of the churches are going towards performance. And we're such an entertainment culture that our worship leaders somehow go that way. And I can tell how they sing, how they use the microphone and twist their head. And so when we were editing this and bringing it together, I wanted to make sure people were looking at the camera and singing towards a person, really blessing them in this song, The Hawaii Blessing.
That's so cool. How did this start? Just tell us the story. How did this all begin?
Well, it's kind of funny. It's just that one of my staff members at church just said, "Hey, Dan, look at this video." And it was a group of 30 Pittsburgh churches singing that song. And as soon as I finished seeing that, I was like, we have got to do this in Hawaii and do it our way. But I would love to do that to bless our people, especially during this time of COVID. And also I have this heart that I want the church, I want the community to know the church is for them. And the church wants to serve the city. We're not against them. And I think for too long, and maybe in the last 10 years especially, the church has been seen, oh, you're the judgmental guys. You hate gay people, and you hate people who have had abortions, and you hate people who are not Christian, and you're judgmental, you're hypocritical, and you go down the line, and you've read the books from the Barna Report. That's how a lot of people see us. So I thought we need to do a song where we just say, we love you. We just want to bless you. And the church has done so much in helping them physically at this time. My church gave 1,200 gloves to Castle Hospital. HIM has given some sanitizing, what do you call it? The sanitizers to them. And churches, a lot of churches, we helped out handing out bags of food. So physical, emotional, but what about spiritual? Can we do something spiritually for the state and maybe beyond to say, God loves you, you're blessed, hang in there, because the same problems we had prior to COVID are still there. The marriage issues, the financial issues, the medical issues are all there, plus COVID. And if you had a bad marriage, you got to live with that person 24/7.
Yes.
And worst case, domestic violence, the pressure has just gone up immensely. And so we really we felt this song was important at this time.
Absolutely. And it's such a beautiful song, beautiful words, beautiful melody. I want to ask you a question kind of on the lines of you being a pastor and having a background in filmmaking. First of all, how did you make that transition from there to being a pastor? And and then the second question is, do you balance those? Do you balance those as being a pastor, or bringing an element of creativity or production, not necessarily over the top production, kind of like what you talked about a second ago, but production in general? Do you bring that into your pastoralship?
Big time, but hopefully it's the hand in the glove that they don't see it. Like, hey, this is about show business. But clearly, being with KGME News for 3 years, that taught me excellence. And they don't mess around. And after every TV newscast, there's a list of what went wrong. So you had to be top of your game. And you, for the reporters, not only did you have to handle the stress and be able to edit and write, you can't make any mistakes on the facts. Incredible pressure. So actually, I write sermons pretty fast because I had to do that in the news. 6 o'clock, there's no excuse. And I know how to write for the ear and not for the eye, because that's TV newscasting, right? But where it also blends, okay, so there's the excellence part. But second is the pacing part. So if you come to our worship service, in TV news or in a news magazine, there are no dead spots. And our service is well-paced. There are no dead spots, like a song ends and somebody's walking up to the lectern and says, okay, and now we're going to do this. The person's there by the time the song ends, and we're going into the next segue to get things moving. And
fluid.
And so that kind of stuff is very important for us. And if you think about it, a well-balanced worship service, this is horrible. I'm revealing all of my secrets. It's like a well-produced news show. There are mountains, there are valleys, there's humor, there's small talk, there's relational stuff, and all of that in my brain somehow subconsciously, that's how we craft the worship service. And again, it's not showbiz, it's how to communicate in a way that people will feel comfortable and inviting, especially for the non-Christian. They just don't want a boring thing. I don't know why my computer keeps bouncing off these little pings. I turned off all my email, so I don't know where it's coming from. So all of that comes in, and when we talk more about the video, I'll even talk more about how it all comes in.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true, because I love it because it's very purposeful, right? It's very purposeful movement, not for showy, but I mean, you make a great point, especially to a non-believer. You want them to not walk in and go, oh gosh, here comes the part where or whatever, I don't know. I know I was in those shoes at one point, but coming into a well laid out setup, really it draws you in. It's more inviting.
Right, and we're very thematic. So all the songs, all the prayers, and the message have to be woven together. And that's not true for most churches. I mean, you could be saying, oh, happy day, and then it was like, well, let's talk about death. And it's like jarring, right? How did that work? And so even our segues, going from the songs, going into the next part, we pick up. So if you're coming out of a song, a beautiful name or something, or a hymn like How Great Thou Art, the prayer starts off, isn't God a great God? Yeah. Isn't he wonderful? And it's the name of Jesus. What a beautiful name. So everything's tied in, but it's very subconscious, and it's like art, right? It can't be blatant. It has to be like there. And suddenly you go, oh, Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper. All the lines go towards the center. Well, that makes sense. There's Jesus, you know. But you don't. It's not blatant like a one-way sign. We're going towards Jesus now. Follow the lines. You know, Jesus is one way. You know. So.
Yeah, it's really good. You're talking my language, because every time, it must be my production background, every time I'm in church, no matter what church I go to, I'm sitting there watching, how's this story being played out? It's the same thing. What's the structure here? And then I think, oh, you know, should have done this or should have done that. And it's like, oh, why am I so critical? Sometimes I hate myself. I think, oh, please just calm down and just get into the message, you know. But it's in me thinking, oh, maybe they could have done that better. But yeah. But hey, I have to ask you, so jumping back into the music video. So you get all these videos, they send them to you, and then you have a team. So tell us about that journey, you know, how that came together, who was editing this stuff, what does it take to get involved with that, the background music, all that kind of stuff. Tell us.
Okay. So numero uno for a great creative artwork, you got to get the right team. If you get the wrong team, you're dead in the water right at the beginning. So I start off with I call him Imua Garza. You know, Imua, Grammy nominee right now, multiple Hoku Award winner, musician. And I say, Imua, I have this dream. I'd like to do this. And he goes, I'd love to do it. I'll do the audio. Oh, amazing, right? And then I have Chaz Umamoto, who says, I want to help too. And I asked him to help. And he also has an audio background, also a multiple Hoku winner. And he cleans up everybody's you know, audio. You know, we got iPhones, we got nice microphones, and then presents it to Imua. Now on the video side, I go, I need somebody who really understands video, and I go to 9th Avenue Studios, the people who do all the high sessions, all these musicians doing music, and they used to do that every week. And so Kavika Lopez is from that. Dave and Shayna Kusamoto are from that. And so now we got the team, the video, the audio people. Jason Waldrop helped as kind of production assistant, making things are coordinated. And so that's the first step. You got to get the right team. Yeah. So we get the 25, and they're all sending in recordings of different equalization or lack of. They're cleaned up. And now here's the interesting part, and people may not know this. We decided to start with the audio, that Imua would start putting them all together based on audio, which meant we had to be very organized, because when Kavika got the audio track, he had to figure out what singer that was and match the video to that voice. Yes. And see, so what Imua did is he figured out what voices really fit. So if you hear the very first two soloists that come up, I think Rick and Jason and then Rick, you'll hear their their voices are very similar. But you didn't want something jarring where it's like, oh, that was hard. And it's just beautiful. And then when he would pick 3 or 4 singers together, they had to blend well. And then some he asked to do harmony in the recordings, and some just did the melody. And somehow we started layering it purely by audio. So the whole audio track is done, and now Kavika comes in and figures out who sang that, who sang that. Oh, there are 4 singers here. There are 8 singers. There are 20. There are 25 singers now. And then you'll notice when you all see it, people who are listening or watching, when a singer is prominent and everybody's singing around, then Imua had to make that voice a little louder, not great, but a little louder. And then Kavika also, when you have kind of the what do you call it, the checkerboard or the bingo or, you know, the Brady Bunch look, it's not just like, oh, we'll just slap in 4 here. And he was trying to match color and context and which way they're looking. And so it was a very conscious, when you look at it, it's pleasing to the eye, but we're matching, oh, that's a brown, that's a black, that's a white, oh, that's a red. And we had to match it. And then somebody's going like this with their hand, so maybe we can match it. And in one part where there's this crescendo that's happening in the song, you'll see one singer go like this, and then it cuts to the next singer going like that, you know, and all that is happening. And then towards the end, Ken Makua Kane, who is one of the few, if not the only Kahu who actually sang it, 18 Hoku Award winner and a lifetime achiever. He goes like this, like, he is for you, he is for you, he is for you. And then it cuts to a young adult going, he is for you, he's for you. And it's so seamless, hopefully, that it's just pleasing to the eye, and you're in it, and the momentum's coming. And so it was, we are super happy about it. But because I'm so particular about performance versus presence of God, if at times we felt a singer was getting too much into it by him or herself, we wouldn't use that. We wanted just to keep the person's looking at the camera. He's saying a blessing for somebody. And you can see there's not much action. It's just the headshot. And the person's passionate. Carrie from Calvary Chapel. It's just, that wasn't dramatic with his arms or hands, but he was just looking at the camera, and just saying, he's for you, he's for you. Yeah. And we wanted that intensity of a passion that, I know things are hard, I know your family's going through rough, I know you've lost your job, he's for you, he's for you.
Yeah. That is so beautiful. And on that note, let's go right now to that video and show the audience this beautiful video that was created by. Thank you so much for your time, Pastor Dan, and we'll see you guys next time.
God bless everybody. Aloha.
The Lord bless you and keep you.
Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his
face toward you
and give you peace. Lord bless you and keep you.
Make his face shine upon
you. Be gracious to you.
The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Shine upon you
and be gracious to you.
The Lord turn his
face toward you and give you peace.
His favor be upon you in 1,000 generations,
and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children.
May his favor be upon you in 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children,
and their children, and their children.
May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations,
and your